Thank you.
I've already got one question from the audience, so, thanks for all showing up. Used to be, we didn't have these things until the actual year of the election, but one of the byproducts of having the primary earlier, and it's in March, is that campaigns are well underway and have been for months now. Let me just introduce our three candidates. They'll each have 3 minutes, and then I'm going to ask Magdalena Carrasco's representative also to address us. So nearest me is former Senegal Mayor Otto Lee, John Leyba, who is former vice chair of the San Jose State Planning Commission, longtime community volunteer, and Kansen Chu, Assemblyman now and former San Jose City Council member. I'm going to begin by asking Francis to talk on behalf of Magdalena. I had to go to a VTA meeting tonight and could not make it, so we've after much negotiation, yes, agreed to give her representative 5 minutes of time. We're going to do that, and then we'll three candidates. You guys get the lion's share of the talk tonight, so we're going to give her a couple of extra minutes now. So 5 minutes first.
Good evening. First, I want to give a little background about Councilmember Magdalena Carrasco and then talk about what she presents for the future. Many of you know she is in her second term serving for the San Jose City Council. Prior to that, she was an Eastside Union High School board member out in this area. And before that, she was the first 5 commissioner working on early childhood education for our county and for the whole state of California. She served 25 years as a social worker in the county, working with young children, early education, families, helping families navigate their way through our county system and ensure that they have a future and that their kids are healthy and that they are getting all the resources that they need from our county. She also worked with perpetrators of domestic violence and got to work in the court system with Judge Sharon Chapman, working with our judicial system, our court system, and ensuring that families can get reunited and that they get the help that they need in our community. Since she served on the San Jose City Council, she has been able to create the Office of Immigrant Affairs. That was one of her initiatives that we've much needed in the past 5 years in the administration that we currently live underneath. The other thing that she has been able to do is bring back resources and budget for domestic violence services and sexual assault in the city of San Jose that had been walked away from quite some time under a previous administration. The other key aspect that Councilmember has been working on, and we were at a 16-hour council meeting on Tuesday, is working on housing. It's the crisis of our times, and she's championed multiple housing policies, including tenant protections, ensuring that we have the resources for affordable housing. We're looking in the future to do first-time home buyers programs again to complement what we're doing at Measure A. Ensuring that we have housing at all levels, but also that we have the resources to work with those who are on our streets. And so at the county level, the reason that we believe that she is most suited to have take on this challenge is not only her work in social work, but we're facing kind of an unprecedented challenge in the county. And we're going to have to shift our systems in that our behavioral health system in our county of Santa Clara is faltering. You see it every day when you see people on the streets with severe mental illness and drug addiction. And so ensuring that you have the right acumen and know how to shift the system so that we are serving those most in need. We're bringing back a little humanity to our unhoused residents. The other challenge that she looks to face head on is we have expanded our health and hospital system drastically this year by the purchase of 2 hospitals. How are we going to ensure that those operations are adequate and that we don't stretch the rest of our current system thinner as we're serving more and more of our residents? And so I'm here on behalf of Magdalena, and I hope that you can support her on her journey to County Supervisor. Thank you.
Yes, first of all, good evening. My name is Otto Lee. Truly a pleasure and honor to be speaking with all of you tonight here at the Grace Church. It's actually my first time here, and I really feel blessed when walking in here. And I want to first thank the D8 Roundtable for organizing this very informative event. I was hoping more people would show up, but maybe some more will come in later tonight. It does get dark much earlier these days, since we don't have daylight savings anymore, right? Kansen. So my name is Otto Lee. I was originally born in Hong Kong. My family moved here when I was 15 years old. When Communist China decided to take back Hong Kong as a British colony, we said we're out of here. So to escape the communists, the first thing we did was we moved to the People's Republic of Berkeley. So that makes sense, right? So anyways, that's why I went to high school, went to college. I got an engineering degree from Berkeley, and after my last nuclear engineering degree, the exam actually, I was born as an ensign to the United States Navy, served a couple of years active duty on board a cruiser as the ship's treasurer, assistant supply officer. And then after that, I came back to the Bay Area here and went to law school at UC Hastings, became an attorney. It sounds just one word. And then after that, I have been practicing intellectual property laws, patents, trademark, copyrights, focusing on protecting the intellectual property of our companies and individuals as well. I've also served 8 years on the Sunnyvale City Council for 2 terms, including a term as vice mayor and mayor. And prior to that, I was on the planning commission as well in Sunnyvale. And in Sunnyvale, they actually have a little nickname of Green Mayor. Green, not said being the experience, but green being the fact that we are very big on environmental issues that we want to protect, including, we let the plastic bag ban, we let the solar panels on a lot of public buildings that we put in. And right now, with the short payback period of only about 12 years, a lot of those that were installed back then, right now is free. And also building a lot of LEED certified buildings, which we think is really important because by having these healthier buildings, the tenants are living there strongly happier. So those are some of the things I've done in China. And then there's no good deeds left unpunished. After I finished my term as mayor, I got sent to Iraq for a year to serve with the multinational forces Iraq as the head of the drawdown policy. So being a Navy reservist, I have no choice, even though I don't agree with the Iraqi policy necessarily, but when the orders come, you have to show up. So I served a year in Baghdad. We can talk a little bit more where I lived. I actually lived in the 40-foot container during that 1 year there. And so very glad to be home and help bring our troops. And I see that my time is up, so I better stop. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, hello, good evening, everybody. I'm John Leyba. First of all, thank you all for coming this evening. I know Evergreen traffic in the evenings can be quite heinous, and the time change doesn't help. Thanks to the D8 Roundtable for hosting. I want to tell you a little bit about myself, a little about my experience, and about my vision for the county. And most importantly, who is John Leyba, and why is he running for county supervisor? So let's start there. I grew up in East San Jose in Alamo. I went to Alamo schools K through 8. Archbishop Mitty High School and Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. I started my life as a foster kid. I moved in with the Leyba family when I was 5 months old. They adopted me officially at age 5. It's kind of a funny scene sometimes because my dad is a former migrant farm worker, Hispanic man. He's about this tall next to me. I speak fluent Spanish, so I'm literally the adopted white kid in a Mexican family. So I know it sounds like a punchline, but that's my life experience. And so, for me, my whole life I've been in a multi-ethnic environment, and of course, just like many San Jose stories, we have Vietnamese cousins and Filipino cousins and white cousins, and we have a little bit of everybody in our family. So very much a San Jose person. I have about a 20-year history of community involvement, and activism is a strong word, but you could say advocacy. When I was about 25 and back from college, my elementary school teachers in Allen Rock recruited me to run for the Allen Rock School Board. After that, I didn't make it to the school board. I lost by 199 out of 18,213 votes, but I spent 5 years on the board of the Alabama Educational Foundation and continued to serve the community to advance the interests of Alabama students, field trip grants, and lots and lots of other programs that we supported. After that, I became involved with the San Jose Parks Foundation, and I'm a founding member of the San Jose Parks Advocates. I've had a long history of environmental and community involvement on parks and green space issues, the Parkland Dedication Ordinance, as well as No on Measure B, Yes on Measure C. My wife and I walked several precincts for that. Went to the victory celebration. Thank you, Daniel, for hosting. And so that's a core part for me. And then, of course, probably the most important thing is something that came out of my college years, and that is a longtime interest in land use and land planning. I was a planning commissioner for the city of San Jose. I was a planning nerd in my neighborhood and worked on many, many developments that were coming in, either to advocate for them or to advocate to modify them to make sure we protect neighborhoods. I have a 15-year career as a finance and project management guy and operations. And I'm running for the county because that's where all our big problems are. And I'm running out of time, so I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Thanks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Pat for your invitation and also congratulate the Roundtable. I know you're one of the very active community organization in San Jose. I'm very, very happy to be here, to be back home. When I'm in back home, because when I first moved to San Jose, my wife and I bought a condo in the Brigadoon village. So we lived there for 5 years before we moved out to a Bay Area area. So being a resident of Bay Area San Jose since 1978, coming down here is really truly feel like going back home. A little bit of background, I came to the United States as a graduate student. So after I finished my bachelor degree in engineering, so I came here with two luggage full of textbooks and doesn't speak much of the English. After I got my master's degree, I was hired by IBM. That's when I called San Jose a home since 1978. So I worked as an electronic engineer for IBM for 18 years. And during that time, my wife and I decided to start a Chinese restaurant and now Santana Road, the old town and country village. So I went from the high-tech business to a low-tech business. But in the years that we operated the restaurant, I got to meet a lot of community members and community leaders, and they encouraged me to get into the political arena. And I started off as serving on the county mental health board, because that's really my passion is, the human services side. And then I served on the private industry council, which is the Work to Future program. They changed the name to Work to Future program. And we're focusing on the at-risk youth and the dislocated workers. So I served on those two boards for a good over 10, 12 years. And at 2002, there is a seat opening in the various school district. And I was then encouraged by my council member, Chuck Reed, to run for that seat. And I got elected in 2012, and then elected twice in 2016. And during that time, Chuck got elected to the mayor, so the seat opened. I ran for the city of San Jose as a council member, and be very honored to serve the community in San Jose. Thank you very much. This is 3 minutes. Did you deduct the time when I'm playing with my microphone? Did you deduct?
No, I would reach up.
Okay.
Okay, we have a series of questions now, and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to answer. If their position is somehow savaged by one of the other candidates on the stage, they'll get a minute rebuttal. It seems like a fairly polite crowd though, so we'll see whether they need their rebuttal or not. First question, what is the answer to our area's homeless problem? Is the 2016 Measure A put forward by the county enough? And this time we'll begin with Kansen and we'll work our way this way.
Good, thank you. As your assembly member, we work on this issue. I know this is not just unique to Santa Clara, but throughout California. So my proposal in the state assembly is that every county or every region has to have a task force to have a long-term plan to address this issue. When I was on the San Jose City Council, I formed a North San Jose task force trying to pretty much do a neighborhood plan or a specific plan in the 2030 general plan to address the issue in North San Jose. So this issue really need to involve in all different levels of government, the private sector, as well as a community-based organization. And we need to take a very long-term, have a very, very planned approach to solve this problem. You have heard about the Measure A. Yes, we have all of a sudden a big chunk of money coming down to this area. The state also committed $30 billion, and then you have heard all different programs. We have to learn the reason for those people to become homeless. You know, you have those people that try to evade from the domestic violence. You have some foster kids, and then you have some people that are working 2-3 jobs, and all of a sudden they lost one job and they cannot afford to rent the place anymore, or the landlord suddenly jack up their rent and they cannot afford to do it. To the other end, we have a multiple barrier we call the chronic homeless people. So we need to really understand and then address them separately.
Ready? Do you all mind if I stay seated? Is that okay? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Okay. So the question was, what is the answer to our homeless problem? Is 2016 Measure A enough? I'll take those in reverse order. 1, Measure A is not enough. You'll recall Measure A is $950 million, $700 million or so of which is supposed to go to help build units, about only 4,800 units of supportive housing. I believe it's very low income and extremely low income housing. And then there's first-time home buyer support, and there's some other programs in there. It's not enough. 4,800 units is not enough when we have 10,000 homeless people on our streets. I believe most of the time when I'm talking with community members about the homeless, what we're really concerned with are folks living on the streets, not just people living in cars, not people down on the luck, not just the shelters. And in the last few years, we've had a push toward a housing first strategy. And I think we need to flip that to a service first strategy. And I'll tell you what we need to do even before we go to a service first strategy is we need to stand up for neighborhoods. We need to enforce existing laws. We need to enforce vagrancy laws. No more camping in the creeks, no more sleeping in the sidewalks, no more living in the bushes, period. And as part of enforcing those laws, we're going to engage something that has been used in the past, and that's the criminal justice system. Now, unfortunately, in the last 10 years, we, the voters, have voted, and our members of Assembly and Senate in Sacramento, I don't know about the Assembly members' voting record, so I'm not going there. This is not an attack. But we voted to decriminalize a lot of drug possession, drug use, and so forth. So the police don't have the same mechanisms that they used to, but we still have mechanisms to engage the criminal justice system as an intake process and then push people toward services, toward drug rehab, toward housing, toward mental health services, and then beef that up at the county. And only the county has the criminal justice system and all the services. And I'll stop there.
Oh, here we go. That works. The homeless problem, there's no silver bullet. It's not one thing that you could fix it. I mean, the Measure A of the $950 million, I think, is a good start, but I certainly don't think it's going to solve all the problems. Why am I saying that? Because when we look at it, let's look at what are the causes of homelessness. Mental health, physical health, drug and alcohol abuse, recovery issues, some of domestic violence victims, veterans. Those are all issues related to the homeless problems. And when you look at all those things I just described, it just so happens they do not fall under the jurisdiction of cities. They actually fall under the jurisdiction of our county. And I think that's why the county really has a lot more to do to step up to help solve this problem. As I earlier mentioned, when I was in Iraq for a year, I was living in a container housing unit, or CHUs, CHU, and there's a 40-foot container box, basically. I know you have the whole box, I only have 1/3 of the box. And what it does is it does provide a door with a lock. There's a window. It's an AC unit. And it's not luxury, but it sure beats living in a tent. And the cost of a container box is extremely affordable. As we know, you could actually go on Amazon and buy a container box for less than $6,000, $7,000. That's how much it costs to get a box. And so when you hear the solutions of building costing $600,000 to $700,000 to build a housing unit, you ask, wow, is it really that much it costs to do? Yes, it does if you're doing a longer-term housing, which I think we do need that. And that's why when you say only 4,800 units being built for the money, it's 950 million of which 700 million. The problem is there is an urgent situation right now with our highway overpass, underpasses. Look at the creeks that we talked about, we all seen them. We are living in Silicon Valley with companies like Apple, Google, Intel. We have a lot of resources, and I think it's inhumane, it's uncivilized, and just immoral to have this type of situation you see. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
1 minute rebuttal?
Did he really come after you?
Huh?
Did he really come after you, or you just got to?
No, I just have to answer John.
All right.
All right, thank you very much. You know, and John mentioned about the criminal justice system, and so we kind of not criminalize those drug people.
We've decriminalized a lot of possession.
Decriminalize, which
That's true.
Which is really not true. We did try to reduce the jail time for some last non-violence crime, and this reason is that it costs our taxpayer, you and I, our money, $80,000 to house one person in the current jail system. And my effort in the state is trying to use that $80,000 to do the wraparound services. I think the problem is not decriminalize or to reduce the sentencing. The problem is that we don't spend the money to rehab.
Okay. You want to?
Sure. Yeah, so the issue is not about sending offenders to jail. The issue is you have no method to get them off of the streets. And in the past, you could arrest people and offer them rehab or jail, and many lives were saved by people being forced into rehab. Now there are significantly fewer forcing functions than there used to be in our society, and we're allowing people to keep on keeping on the streets. And we know we have a huge addiction problem. We know that nationally we have huge opioid crisis. It's here in San Jose, and we need to start doing stuff about it, not looking the other way. That's all. I'm done.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Recently, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to stick with its policy of barring local law enforcement from alerting federal officials when undocumented inmates, including some potentially dangerous felons, are released from jail. What are your thoughts about this decision? I'm going to begin with John first and then go to Otto.
Sure. So I got some interesting information from Supervisor Wasserman, who was the supervisor who had done the referral asking county staff to look into the sanctuary policy and so forth. And frankly, the feds already can see who is going to be coming out of jail. It's not on the county to have to directly notify them. Now, the second level problem, and actually it's probably a bigger problem, is that sometimes identities and names and so forth get mixed up. So there's no good way to necessarily assure if the county were directly notifying that they're actually notifying about somebody who is in violation of their immigration status. Okay, so they could be telling on a citizen who then gets errantly deported just because they committed a crime. So, as I understood it from Supervisor Wasserman, I was pretty satisfied with his answer that the status quo is what it is for the foreseeable future. Thanks.
Good.
I'm using this. Okay. Just put it up to your mouth and start.
Oh, just talk. Just 1, 2, testing. 1, 2, testing. Nope. I'm sorry. Go into song. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Show us your taps.
This is oh no, you don't see. 1, 2.
I would just speak up.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. I do have a soft voice, but I'll try that. Yeah, as John has mentioned, the reality is that we actually have gone through a study. A vote was taken earlier, if you recall, a 4-1 vote initially, to look at this very policy and say, hey, why are we not doing more to make sure that criminals are not apprehended and being released to the public for that might endanger the safety, and some of those are being undocumented. What we found out.
You're in business.
So what we found out after the 4-1 vote was taken, there was a very comprehensive study that the county has undertaken. And for those of you who have not read it, I would encourage you strongly to read what's in there. And as John has actually mentioned, I agree completely, is that it turns out the federal authorities, in this case ICE, actually already have databases and computer systems that knows exactly who is going to be released. There was some argument regarding the detainer issue, but if they actually go to the judge to get a warrant, this is something that the county complies. The problem is the ICE do not want to go through that procedure. They want to use a civil detainer. It seems to be a legalistic difference, but the difference is one requires going to a judge, one doesn't. And ICE does not want to go to a judge and do it. And so therefore, at that point, after the study is done, basically, the county has voted 5-0 with all of the supervisors currently on board to basically say that the current system is sufficient. And the part of the reason why we have this policy is this. We are a big immigrant community, and a lot of our communities do not speak English. And when you have folks like ICE running around hospitals or going around churches or going around hospitals and schools, it does not really enhance safety. It actually makes us more dangerous because people are not reporting crime. So those are the reasons why sanctuary policy is in place. And therefore, I think that's, like John says, this will be the policy that will be continued. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Hello. Talking about the sanctuary policy, I do believe that what we have here is acceptable. If the federal government wants the information about those convicted felonies, they have so many different ways to get it. So the fact that we have a sanctuary policy I think will actually improve the public safety, because in a lot of the record actually says that a lot of people without the paper, without the proper documentation, not only will not report crime that really as a victim, they will not come out as a witnesses. So some protection to make them more comfortable to cooperate with the police department is actually a better way to fight crimes in our community.
Okay, this time we'll begin with Otto. Supervisor Cindy Chavez recently suggested a 5/8 sales tax to tide the county through tough times. Is this a good idea?
First of all, personally, I'm not a fan of sales tax because of the fact that sales tax in general is very regressive. When you mean regressive, what I mean is that folks who's at the lowest economic spectrum, who's paycheck to paycheck, are the ones who will be harmed the most when it comes to that type of sales tax. And as we know, we have had so many different sales tax that have been put into different bonds in terms of getting transportation measures. We've asked for that measure that got money from BART coming through, and certainly that money has been hopefully well spent, because now that we're expecting that the Beresa and Milpitas station will be open sometime, hopefully end of this year or in January. I am skeptical to see what the purpose is. It's just for general purposes. I'm inclined to find out more. As I said, because of the fact that there's so many sales tax right now, it hurts a lot of folks, and also businesses as well. The people say, hey, you know what? If it costs more to buy stuff in Santa Clara County, I'm going to go elsewhere, like San Mateo, San Francisco, or other places where sales tax might be less. So I think it does hurt small businesses as well, in addition to folks in that's more vulnerable. I do see there are many other ways to raise funds, and also, if you don't recall, I mean, look, the property tax has been going up right now. There are a lot of buildings being built right now, and all those are paying taxes to Larry's company. We know that. And I just wrote a check to him the other day, and he's still taking a lot of my money. And so I do think there are other ways that we really need to look carefully before we raise more sales tax. So I would be asking more questions before supporting something like that. Thank you.
John.
Is it working? Yes. Okay. Small pleasures, right? I would not support an additional sales tax at this time, or I don't really think I could ever. But I'll tell you a little bit why. And the first, as Otto said, is that sales taxes are highly regressive. The second is that our sales tax here in this county is now approaching, we're getting up toward 10%. I had the great fortune to attend college in a state where the sales tax is 0. And I can tell you that there is actually a tax arbitrage that occurs with retail where in the state of New Hampshire, where I went to college, there were shopping malls and shopping centers that were well visited and well patronized by people with Vermont license plates. And it's because Vermont had like a 5 or 6% sales tax. I don't know, because I wasn't living there, so I don't know the exact number. Sorry. But New Hampshire had prided itself on having a 0% sales tax. Likewise, on the Massachusetts border, there are lots of malls, outlet centers, and so forth. And so we don't want to put our sales tax coffers on the whole at risk, especially in places like Milpitas, where there's a significant amount of retail. And maybe people from Fremont might be inclined to go to the Great Mall, or they might go to McCarthy Ranch, but now they're not going to because they'd rather stay on that side of the border where it's cheaper, like our auto malls, things like that, right? So I wouldn't support an increase on the sales tax. I think we're already taxed just fine. I think the fact that our county budget has gone from 4.9 to over $8 billion in 5 years, which is a huge increase. I think they have enough revenue. We need to figure out how to spend it and prioritize it a little bit better before we talk about sales tax increases. Thank you. I keep wanting to grab this. I don't drink that.
Yeah, I'm glad that Cindy actually resent that proposal. And so I guess it has a lot to do with the timing. Come next year, the CASA, the CASA is a group led by the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. They were also thinking about putting up a sales tax for transportation purpose. There's a whole Bay Area sales tax. So I don't think I will support Cindy's proposal, and I'm glad that he withdraw that proposal. However, I do support the split roll that should be on the ballot in November, which was to close some of the loophole of Proposition 13. So San Jose in the 60s, the leadership really enjoyed every year's reassess the property value. So they purposely push a lot of the business to our neighboring cities. And as when I was on the San Jose City, I have what's called employment land protection policy. So we want to protect those industrial and commercial spaces. Will give them very, very difficult to convert it into a residential. And because right now in the city of San Jose, we're so much depending on the sales tax. It's almost like 60% sales tax, 30% property tax, which is really a reverse situation back in the 60s. The 60s we rely 80% in property tax and only 20% in sales tax. So property tax is a more stable way to fund the local government.
Okay, we're going to begin with John this time. Go to Kansen. What is the biggest eyesore in our area? And what would you do to clean it up?
Yeah, I'm
This is one that requires people to think on their feet, so I have a lot of sympathy for
So I mean,
this position.
if I had to pick in a nutshell, and you can go there, I know a lot of folks go across town for work. The biggest eyesore, and it's sad, I don't know the exact origin of the situation, but it's on, I believe it's Maybury Road at 13th Street. You can turn right, somebody's nodding, you know what I'm talking about. You turn right, you go over 101 on the north side of 101, and as you turn right, some person living on the street has made a lean-to shelter against the fence. And ordinarily, this is getting ordinary around this city, but that lean-to shelter is in an easement or in a right-of-way that is literally 2 or 3 feet wide. That person is living in a space like about as wide as this table, or is as wide as this table is deep, and it runs for a good 15, 20 feet. It appears horrible, it is horrible, and the fact that it's still there after months and months and months, through dry weather, through rainy weather, is something that we as a city, as a county, as a community should be ashamed of. Okay, and that's not the only one, but that's probably the worst eyesore in our community. That is incidentally in our Santa Clara County District 3, just for the record, the border right there. The border is there at 101, so yeah. Take a look at it sometime, Maybury by 13th Street. And there's like metal recycling and other recyclers there in the area. It's a very industrial area. It's just that condition would be horrible anywhere. Thanks.
Kansen.
The number one eyesore.
And what you might do to try to clean up?
You know, I will say this is something I work on since I was on the San Jose City Council, and we're to continue working on. I will think it's the 13th Street exit, on 101. There's a Pacific Railroad, a trestle over there, and it constantly has the graffitis on it, and then there's a homelessness issue. Because it does not belong to the city, it does not belong to the state. The free highway is a state responsibility, and off the highway is a city responsibility. And we have to deal with the Pacific Rail company, which really always been difficult in my years as a council, in my years as assembly member. So I will say this. 13th Street and 101.
Do you have any ideas what to do about it?
Huh?
Any ideas about what to do about it?
Yeah, we just have to continuously working with the Pacific Railroad to ask them to clean up, their properties. So the separate jurisdiction, it make it very, very difficult.
Thank you. I think this is one issue that we all can agree on. I think we all know that location, and there's also some train tracks in Barris as well that you drive by and you'll see exactly where the problems. And I think it's true that both the jurisdictional issue, as Member Chu has mentioned, is one of the problems. And we could try to get cleaned up, and as we know, they have done it once in a while. They'll clean up every couple of weeks, and then next thing you know, so they'll get released from jail and they'll come back out. The solution that I try to propose, whether it is using the container housing unit or whether it's the tiny homes proposal that you heard in San Jose, I think is kind of more of a real solution where when you clean things up, you're gonna have a place for them to stay. Otherwise, they just come back out. If they don't go there, they just move to another farm. They'll find another place. They'll find another creek. So you're just moving from point A to point B. That does not really solve a problem. But of course, finding a place where to put these is challenging. I mean, there's a lot of NIMBY problems. People don't want things to, homeless housing right next to the home because that would affect their, the property value. And I understand that, I'm a homeowner as well. But at the same time, in terms of solving the problem, I think county has a lot more ways to do it because Santa Clara County is actually very, very large. Even District 3 itself is also very, very large. And when you look at who's got all the land, it's not the cities, right? City, they'll be trying to point, oh, District 3, move it to District 5, District 5, move it to District 4. And instead of that pushing back and forth, I think county actually has the land as a law maker. And that's why they're doing a audit to figure out where we can find a place to actually do it. And I do believe there's, like, for example, the Civic Center area, right, in the county that is being proposed putting affordable housing units. And that's only a wonderful place because there's a lot of services right there as well. Because not just a matter of housing. Housing is great, but you gotta have the services to go along with what we talk about. Homeless issue, I mean, the health issues, the drug rehab issues, and things like that. Thank you.
Okay, forgetting who I should ask to start the next one. I guess I'll start again with Otto. This one, I should warn everybody in advance that there may be a temptation to duck the question. If so, I'll report that out, because it does deal with labor negotiations. The county is now in contract mediation with its labor unions, which organized a rolling strike last month. The county has offered 3% a year over 5 years. The labor unions say that the county has the resources to pay more. Would you favor paying more?
Thank you, Scott. One thing we do know is the cost of living of the valley has gone up very dramatically. Of our housing costs, I tell people it's no longer very high. That was a few years ago. Now it's just ridiculous. And the cost of housing, of course, also drives the wages. With the high-tech company we have with Google and Apple, they have absolutely driven up the cost of wages. And I think this is also what makes it so hard to live in Valley. A lot of people who work for the government depends on expecting a very solid paycheck. We might not get paid as much as a county employee or city employee, but we know that the benefits will be very good and they will be taken care of with some type of pension. Well, as we know, the pension system is certainly not working as they used to be. Now a lot of companies are going to 401k, and a lot of our pension systems are also being quite unfunded. And I think this is causing a big problem with us because when the pension is going with the stock market, what purse is, stock market goes up is good, but when the stock market goes down, then the amount of unfunded liability becomes very, very serious. So I would say we need to really look at a much bigger picture holistically to try to figure out this problem. As far as negotiation of the unions, I do think that mediation is a very good approach because unless the two sides are talking, there won't be any progress. The strike does not help the employees because they are not getting income. It certainly hurts the community because we are not getting the dire services that we need. So I'm very glad that they've now gone to mediation. I really don't like to see strike happening. I'm glad to say back in times when I was Sunnyvale mayor and council for 8 years, we had labor peace. We had labor peace. And I think that's an important accomplishment that we're able to accomplish by working together with the labor groups and with our management to come up with a solution. So I hope that this mediation will take place as soon as possible. Both sides come together, and I really hope that our county will be able to enjoy the services by coming to a great agreement. So thank you.
I'm going to take that as a qualified yes. That he is willing to pay more than 3% a year. I'm going to go to Jim.
Sure. I'll go ahead and stand for this one because this is kind of a long, complicated one. So the short answer is it depends. And if memory serves, just as a brief fact check, I believe we're in mediation just with SEIU and not with all of the unions, but that represents about half of the labor force of the county. So a couple weeks ago, I was precinct walking and I met a woman who was retired from HR in the county. She had been doing some contract work, and it was really funny because just the prior Tuesday at a community forum, I had said, we need to do a top-down review where we review what every employee is doing and what level they're at. Remember, sometimes the best way to get ahead and the best way to get a raise in the civil service space is to move from clerk specialist number 1, 2, 3, 4. There are actual grades, and people can get promoted through jobs. And through jobs, through promotions in jobs, right? That they take on a new role, they take on the work of a colleague, whatever. When I was a neighborhood leader across town in the midtown part of San Jose, we had a huge problem with people with Valley Medical bracelets and gowns walking our neighborhoods. We worked for over a year, neighborhood leaders working with Valley Medical hospital leadership, and they were supposed to set up a whole department that was going to be like crisis intervention, go out and get people off the streets and get them help. We came to find out they hired the administrator, but they never hired the staff. Well, they wanted a master's level person to work for $55K a year, but they wanted a master's in psychology or social work. How are you going to get somebody to work for that wage in this town, right? So we need to be really realistic about what wages are being offered for what work, and if that means certain roles go up, or even some of the vacancies are eliminated, because that's been a point of contention between county leadership and between the SEIU. A lot of the folks say, hey, you're leaving half our department vacant, we're all killing ourselves on overtime, why don't you just pay us more and allow us to close up some of those vacancies? County leadership says, no, I think we need to rethink all of that.
I think he did not answer the question. We'll go to Kansen.
The short answer is yes. I do believe that any level of government is really a service organization. And what we have as a tool to provide good services is people. And the government employees are very different than those people that work in the private sector. The private sectors, they have stock options. They could in turn become a millionaire in a day or whenever the company's stock go public. The government employee are a kind of different breed of people. When I was on the San Jose City Council, we have to deal with a lot of this issue. And I don't know if you remember the Measure B, trying to reduce the pension for our police department. So as a result, we lost about 600 police officers. And it is from 1,400, it's already low for the city of San Jose, down to about 800 police officers. So then later on, when I left the city council, I understand that we have another ballot, to people to really undo the proposition Measure B to provide a better compensation for our peace officers. So we need to really let the process go to its course and find out if there's a way that we can allocate more funding to reward our public service. Did I answer your question?
You did. You
Yes.
said yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make a rebuttal?
Sure, absolutely.
Since you said I didn't answer the question, I will rebut myself here. And the short of it would be, yes, but it depends. We need a top-down performance review. We need to show every employee the total cost of compensation, including their defined benefits of their pension and what that's worth, and make sure we've gone all the way across the organization to level set and right size the org, not just give a blanket raise. So it's yes and no.
All right, John, we're going to begin. I think I'm going to do 2 more questions and throw it over to the audience, if that's okay. Let's begin with John on this one. Have you or anyone close to you had a significant experience with county services? VMC, sheriff, social services, voters' reg, elder care, restaurant inspection, etc. And give us your review.
Sure. Remember my joke about being the white kid in a Mexican family? Well, the reason my adoption took 5 years is because the county would not let a Mexican family, Mexican American, I mean, my family goes back 300 years in California and New Mexico. The county would not let my Hispanic Latino family in the 80s adopt me. And mind you, I have cousins on my dad's side who are his blood relations in New Mexico who are whiter than I am. But the county, put the brakes on it. And so it took them 5 years to work their way through the entire system. I personally was astounded. I'm still wrapping my mind around all the where's and what fors of the different county services. I mean, it's just so vast when you've got over 20,000 employees, $8 billion budget. You're always learning about all these nooks and crannies. But the county has significantly more, I don't know, significantly more is the right word, but we still have about 1,500 foster kids in the system. We have not solved the foster care challenges, and the foster to adopt rate has gone down by about half in the last 20 years. Okay, so my experience back in the early 80s, obviously is not a model we want to scale on, right? It's something we want to improve, but we haven't gotten significantly better in terms of getting foster kids placed and adopted on a permanent basis. So that's my review there.
Kansen, next. Your personal experience with county.
Scott, like short answers, so all of the above. Because I had a restaurant. We deal with a lot of the health inspection. But I will use my 2 minutes to address the foster youth issue, not only because I was serving on the private sector PIG council, and also because my son-in-law is a foster kid. So I have a lot of experiences with the issue in foster care. And that's why this year, just 2019, I have a bill that was signing to the law to redefine the runaway foster kid. Right now, I think John will talk about the challenges that the county have. It's really because of the definition of what's a runaway foster kid. And right now, the law will only allow people like Bill Wilson's house to keep them for 21 days. But come next January, because my law got signed into my bill got signed into the law, the shelter can keep them for 90 days to help them to get their life together or to find another foster home. So. Short answer, yes, all of the above, but not with the sheriff.
Was your experience a good one or a bad one? Was your experience a good one or a bad one?
But my experience with the foster care, I know that there definitely more work needs to be done. And in terms of the health inspection, and I will say that those people need to be a little bit more culturally sensitive to the different ethnic cooking.
Okay. By the way, if you want to address foster care, that's fine too. My question seems to have been basically hijacked, so go ahead.
Thank you, Scott. So my experience actually was back in the mid-90s when my parents used to have a restaurant up in Evergreen Hills. And I was living down south here in Clara County. And, if you might recall, there's actually a time when we had a bad economy. In '94, our restaurant, we lost our restaurant and our house got foreclosed. And at that time, certainly, we don't have any health insurance, and my mother actually got ill. And so we have to use the county hospital system. So the most inefficient way of treating our ill and sick is using the emergency room. And people say about universal health care, in our county, we actually have universal health care. Everybody walks in to Valley Medical Center, emergency room will be looked at and will be treated, regardless of your insurance system. And that's how we were able to get my mother to get her services being dealt with. I remember personally waited 9 hours in the emergency room. I felt almost sick for just how long it takes her to actually see somebody because of the way the system works. and it's absolutely broken. It's very expensive. When we go through the emergency system, and she did get the care. Once we saw somebody, the care actually was very, very good in the medical center. And I do remember this other time where her eye was hurting. And that one time, the wait was actually much less because apparently for eye issues, they see you immediately because they have to rank what's more important. So we were able to see a doctor within an hour once we arrived in the emergency room. And it turns out that if we had not been there that day, if we waited a couple more days, she could have lost her sight. So we have a great Valley Medical Center system. They actually work well. We have a great burn unit. We have a great neonatal care center from the hospital. The problem we have here is we have a lot of people there who's not paying the bills. And we need to make sure that the system's in place for computers so that we could collect the money from the state and federal government for those who don't have coverage. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question here, and then we'll throw it out to the audience. This is actually suggested by an audience member. You know, as an elected official, one of the key things you do is decide what is the most important things you can do. You're asked to take a vote on many different things, but it's where you direct your staff and where you direct your resources and your passion that really matter. So I'm going to ask each of you, beginning with Kansen, and we'll work down this way, to tell us what are the top 2 issues for you. Only 2. I don't want you to vote on more than 2. The top 2 things that you put at the front of your agenda.
Housing and transportation, that's one, because to me, the housing and transportation are two faces of the same problem. The fact that you see a lot of congestion in our roadway getting in and out of the Silicon Valley is because our housing is too expensive. They end up living in Tracy, Los Banos. So we need to improve the transportation so people can live further away and doesn't have to waste 2 hours in each way to go to and back from work. That's not only bad for our environment because they're just sitting there, putting out those greenhouse gas, and also sacrifice a lot of their family life. So housing and transportation. And secondly is the healthcare. And I'm mental health and dental health need to be imperative with the physical health. I'm a strong advocate for school-based mental health services. I have a bill to require every public school have mental health counselor services. So to help the kids with the issue, because 86% of the kids that require mental health services don't have access to mental health services. So I'm a nationwide champion for the school-based mental health services. And I was very honored to receive the Mental Health America, which is a countrywide organization, and 2 months ago provided me with the honor of the Legislator of the Year. So thank you.
John.
The most important thing we can do with the county is spend our money wisely. I know that when I pay taxes to the city of San Jose, a lot of those benefits are going to accrue back to me, right? I'm going to have libraries and parks and paved streets and police and fire, all that, the sewer, all those things that we need in our lives. I know that the money that goes to the county, 90% of it is going to go to other people. It's going to go to help the neediest. It's going to go to help broken people. But we know that the county is not doing as good a job as it could be doing. And so they need to treat every dollar as if it was the last dollar and prioritize that accordingly. So the most important topical area really is around accountability and controls and making sure we're spending money well. So we don't go several $100 million over in construction projects when we go to redo the Civic Center like they did with VMC just a couple years ago. Right? So it would be that fiscal accountability and spending as number one priority. And then the second thing would be getting the county to think to root cause. Root cause. Why? Ask why like 7 times whenever we have an issue. Let's attack the problem at the end of that sequence of questions instead of just papering over all the symptoms all the time. Let's go back to whatever is driving the people to be on the street, whatever is driving the people to be homeless, whatever is driving the domestic violence victim to be, not at home anymore, whatever that is, right? Why? Go back to root cause. So I think those two priorities, changing how we think about spending in the county and how we address our problems and our process, those are the two top priorities the county needs to fix.
As we talk a lot about the homeless situation, I do think that the one of the root causes we talk about is the mental health situation. In the 70s and 80s, we recall when with Governor Reagan, one of the things he did was, unfortunately, decided to not fund the mental institutions. Not saying mental institutions were perfect, they have their problems, but we certainly learn from it, of what not funding that means, because now you're kicking people to the curb, and now it becomes the county and not the state's responsibility of dealing with mental health crisis that we have, and certainly not going to be better. I really do think that is a serious lack of inpatient mental health beds in this county. And I could say right now, one of my first proposal would be putting in at least, just give me 3 dozen, say 40 beds, okay, for mental health patients, where there are folks that you actually see on the street, so you can name who needs to go there. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out what needs to be done. Folks don't live like that because they voluntarily want to. They don't have the means to, they're not able to mentally. So I think it's humane for us to not address that as an urgent problem. And to me, that would be one of the first issues I really want to do, because I think it would actually save people's lives. I think this could be a life and death issue, number one. The other one is more, for everybody, of course, it's our transportation problems we have. When we see the term expressway, that actually is the word to remind you it's actually county roads. Lawrence Expressway, Central Expressway, Montague Expressway, St. Thomas Expressway. And what you still learn about that is in St. Thomas, those lights are timed, so you can go by really quickly, while some of them is extremely slow. And that's not really rocket science, it takes to time the lights. So I think that's the first thing we need to do is let's get those timed. So like Montague, we don't stop every 15 to 30 seconds. And finally, I think the longer term is we need to get overpasses, underpasses, and get rid of those lights altogether, so that things are really moving. Because these expressways were planned 30, 40 years ago for much less cars, and we're way overdue to these infrastructure rebuild. Thank you.
All right. Scott, a rebuttal for my Governor Reagan, my hero. No, it's just it's just a clarifying statement.
It wasn't Reagan who did it.
There's a bipartisan thing when that happens. Yeah.
No.
All right, we're gonna open it up here to questions. Anyway. Yeah.
Very good.
Wait a second, we got a mic coming.
Most of the conversation this evening was about housing. I have a property that I bought back in 1968, and I put it under Section 8. And my wife has a condo that is about to put it on Section 8. I want you to elaborate on the following. I attended a meeting with Housing Authority, and I asked them, why can you, given that I evicted one of the clients when I had to remove about 27 bags of garbage from the house, and my wife had to fix walls and doors that cost quite a bit of money. And I posed the following question: why doesn't the county provide training for their clients that are seeking housing? So there would be a class about how to take care of a home. Because most of those people never have had property and they don't know how to take care of a house. So if it's leaking or destroying little things, it ends up costing a lot of money. And people are taking a second look at whether or not to rent to those clients. What would you do? Would you be willing to have classes for them that they will receive a certificate?
Okay,
And
I think we got your question. In the interest of moving things along, we're gonna ask just for 1 minute responses on here. So Otto first and John.
Sure. In more general terms, I think there's a lot of things that we can educate folks, whether they're going out of jail and trying to get services, or just renters knowing how to take care of the homes, like for example, like you mentioned. And you know, we don't necessarily learn how to do many things in high school. It's not what they're supposed to teach you. So I think it's actually something that I think our county might be able to take on some of this responsibility on the training. I think more realistic thing is the technology that we're in. There are a lot of ways to do the training other than classes. For example, even YouTube videos. I have learned so many things on how to fix my washer. When it's give me that code F21, I looked at the video, I learned it in about 20 minutes, and I did it myself. So I think use free technology. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Got to maintain. So the short answer is yes. I think the county has a crucial role to play in providing those services up front and shifting away from a housing first model to one that really looks at service and preparing tenants, especially people that are coming out of a crisis mode, to make them ready for transitional housing, for opportunities. And you know, you're not the first person to tell me that story. At the Norwood Neighborhood National Night Out, I heard an amazing story from a neighbor there who owns a condo back behind, they're over by Evergreen Valley College, who had somebody do about $100,000. She'd worked with an agency. There was a homeless vet got placed there. He had PTSD, other issues, didn't really know how to take care of the place. $100,000 in damage, right? And then the agency is going to pay that, or the county's going, somebody's going to pay to make them whole. But that could have been avoided if we would have gone upstream and solved or taught that person before they went into the unit.
I believe that it's really the responsibility of the landlord. When you sign the contract with the tenant, you tell them what you expect them to do as a tenant. A lot of time from my experiences of talking to my constituents is that the tenants are so afraid of reporting those issues because they are worried about the landlord come in, fix it, and it will increase their rent. So I believe this is the communication between the landlord and the tenant, and maybe schedule a more regular visit of your property is the way to do it. We can offer classes, but I don't think it will really do much good, because if they don't know how to take, they're so worried about the rent increase, they might not report the problem.
Question right here. I'm pointing to you.
I was pleased to generalizing one another. You all basically referenced housing and transportation. But with the increased push toward higher density housing, especially here in San Jose, with the stuff we're doing with the add-ons to our lots and stuff like that, plus the places we're building like on Coddle and 85. What you haven't really addressed for me, what I want to hear is, and then I want to hear about expressways. I want to hear what we're going to do to improve the DTA and the other public transportation we have, because we have, our kids can't even get to college, but they're going to be getting bus trips. And we can't get to work on this side of the rail because it takes 45 minutes. So what are your plans, or what can you do to resolve that?
So I'm going to begin with John.
Sure. So, in general, land use is a city prerogative. However, the county still has not spent all of its Measure A dollars. There is the possibility there could be future bonds that I personally would not support, but if the voters vote for it, then they vote for it. I would like to see more development happen closer to jobs, and I would like to see the county take a leadership position in trying to get those additional incremental units to be across the valley, in Santa Clara, in Palo Alto, in cities that have really lopsided jobs to housing ratios and have chronically underbuilt. Santa Clara has put in the pipeline over 14 million square feet of office space. That's enough for 56,000 workers in the last 5 years. Have they built that many homes? No. They're expecting us over here on this side of the valley to solve their problems. And so I want to see other cities step in and put their housing next to where their jobs are. And I think we may see some relief at a state level. There's been a lot of noises about intensification. Yeah, there you go. I could go on forever, et cetera.
2 minutes, right? Okay.
Just 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute, I'm sorry. So, to me, I think the BTA, our transportation system is actually broken. Except for commute hours, right? If you see buses, those big 22 buses goes by, or the light rail train goes by, you see 3 to 4 people in there, there's a problem. The system's not working, right? Why are people not taking them? Well, A is too slow. It takes you too long to get from point to point B. And number 2 is, actually, I think it's too costly. Because this is how people do the math. It's $2.25 each way, you round to $4.50. How much would gas be if I drive? Probably about the same, but I can get there faster. Why would I take public transportation? So I do think there's ways that we could try to make public transportation work by not focusing on the fare box recovery, which is what they're trying to do, like to get the money back, is let's use our priority as, let's see what we can do to fill the buses, fill the light rail. If it means free buses for seniors, free buses for students, let's do that so more people will actually take it. And I think that to me would be a good start of this problem. Thank you.
High density housing, I just asked you to look at the North San Jose neighborhood plan. There's a lot of transit oriented development. And in that neighborhood plan, which I led and authored, it really takes some a vision and the leadership to get the NIMBYs all agreed upon as high as 90 units per acre in the North San Jose. In terms of BTA, I think the problem started at the top. There's a grand jury report. They would like to see the board structure. So right now, the board structure, the county supervisor has some guarantee C, San Jose has some guarantee C, and then they have different regions. And so small cities, their council members are part-time, and then they wanted to be on the BTA board. They didn't really, I don't believe they have really spent enough time to understand the agenda before they go to the meeting.
Okay, we're gonna do one last question, and then we're gonna do closing statements. Just in the interest of getting everybody out of here, lady in the red jacket.
Hi, my name is Jean Mercury, and I'm a 25-year resident of Evergreen. My father was mayor and on city council for 10 years in Santa Barbara County. And I just want to say I'm so impressed with all 3 of you tonight. And I think you could all be valuable assets to our board of supervisors. So thank you for watching. My question is, I guess it's time to brag for you. I'm currently on the Santa Clara County grand jury, and I've learned a lot about all the agencies. Recently meeting with Joseph Midian, and I'd like you to each tell us what attribute you possess that makes you uniquely qualified for this position, and what value can you add to the board of supervisors? Thank you.
We'll begin with Kansen this time.
I pride myself being a public servant, not a politician. So that's a big difference. Politicians, which I know a lot of them, when they got elected to the supervisor or the assembly, they look at the mirror, they see the next senator or they see the next congressman. But when I look into the mirror, I see a graduate student who came to the United States with luggage full of textbooks and doesn't speak any English. I appreciate what the country has done to me, and this is my opportunity to give back to my community. And I wanted to bring my life experience and 20 years of full-time public services experience back home so it can be more impactful. That will be experience that counts.
Sure. So I think 2 of my defining qualities is are my optimism and my passion. And in my work for the last many years, I've been both a finance person as well as a process person. It's kind of a dirty word to say it, but I've been at PG&E for 13 years, or 12 and a half, and Agilent Technologies before that in the finance department. And so in my work, in my activities, there's always a striving for excellence and perfection that tomorrow can be better than today. That we have to have that optimism as a goal that we can do things so that the American dream will persist, that the California dream will persist. We're not going to slide into the ocean. It's not all being burnt away. That we can do something about it. And you have to have that, and every day you have to make an effort to lean into that and to try to solve those problems and to pick up the reins. And you know, I'm leapfrogging because I'm not running for city council. I'm running for county supervisor because all the problems are there. But I've got experience and I have the skills and the right mindset to solve those issues with you.
Okay, Otto. Well,
Moment for you,
we should you'll each have a chance for a closing statement here, so.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I was a ship's treasurer. That was my first job in the Navy, and I was a supply officer and served in Iraq. And I think the military experience has taught me a lot. Being the treasurer, of course, I had to learn accountability, responsibility, and leadership of how to lead people in all walks of life. I'm also the founder of my law firm in business for 21 years in San Jose. So as a small business owner, I have to make payroll every 2 weeks. And that, of course, is another important skill set. As a lawyer, we should train professionally to solve problems, whether it's mediation, arbitration, or have the court to deal with these issues. I think it's something that's really important. As you can see what we're going through right now, the mediation with the unions and the county. In Sunnyvale City Council, I have learned some of the efficiency government can have. We have a one-stop permitting center, things can move much faster, cutting red tapes instead of compared to San Jose, sorry. But you know, Sunnyvale does run certain things much better. And finally, I do speak 3 languages. I was born speaking Chinese, and I did learn Spanish. So those are the things I would like to bring to the table to serve the community. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to closing statements now. You have up to 2 minutes. Some of you have already sort of started to get your final lined up, so if you want to take less, I think people will understand. But John, why don't you begin, and we'll move then to Otto and finish with Kansen.
Sure. So you all heard a lot about all the candidates tonight. You heard about our experience, you heard about some of our thoughts. There's a lot of overlap between the candidates in terms of our positions. But I think the things that set me apart are really a mind toward improvement, toward fiscal accountability, toward turning the way we're doing things at the county, the things that aren't working on their side, right? I'm not running as a career politician. I'm running as a neighborhood guy, a neighborhood leader, former neighborhood association president a couple times, a district leadership group chair. So all due respect to Pat, wherever he is, I think he disappeared. I've been in the trenches in the neighborhood, but I've gone down to City Hall and I've advocated. And I know what it's like to push policy in to make it a reality. I was able to do that for one of the urban village plans here in San Jose, and actually as a planning commissioner saw stuff come through that conformed to the policies that I helped make as a neighborhood person. You know, we need to do more at a county level to empower our neighborhoods and put you first and not prioritize the rights of others over your rights to clean community, clean streets, clean creeks, clean parks, and a happy place, as Chuck Reed, who's endorsed my campaign, once said, make San Jose, make Sunnyvale, and make Milpitas a great place to work, live, and raise a family. That's the kind of vision I have for the county, and that's something I look forward to doing for you. Thank you.
Okay, Otto, you're next. 2 minutes.
Some people summarize the work of the county as for the naughty and the needy. I'm not sure you've heard that before, but there's
I'm writing it down.
There's a little bit of truth to it. You have the criminal justice system, the courts and the jails, right? But of course, the hospital system that we have, along with all the other issues. And one thing I have to say is that right now the stock market is linked all-time high. Things are supposed to be doing well, but as we all know, just like housing prices or stock prices, they are in cycles. Because when they come they don't usually come slowly. When bad things happens, it might be a cliff that we're looking at in a few months or a year. We just don't know when. It's like earthquake, right? It's a matter of, it's not a matter of, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I think the role of the county will be so important because if we have such a huge homeless problem now, what do you think it would be when the economy goes down? I want to point that out. Having lived in a 40-foot container box for a year and serving in a war zone, certainly it gave me a very special, unique experience. I escaped a mortar attack by 90 feet. After that, I went to church a lot. And I think God has other plans for me when I come back. And I really do think that having retired now in the Navy after 20 years as a Navy commander in logistics and learning the transportation and moving, these are the moving parts and experience I really think I would like to bring to our county to help solve a lot of these problems that we have now and the future problems that we probably have to face. We are living in a really great county. We have a lot of wealth here, but the disparity of the companies I mentioned earlier and what you see on the streets is completely incompatible. We have a lot that we can do, and I do believe that that would be the reason why I'm doing this. I'm taking a huge pay cut. As a patent attorney, I do quite well financially. This is not, I'm not doing this for a paycheck. I'm doing this because I really hope I can use my skill set to help our community. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks to Grace Church for hosting this event and your patience and interest and listening to all of us. I run this campaign pretty much based on my track record as a full-time public servant for the last 15-some years. And I could stay in the assembly for 6 more years, but I decided to bring my life experience, my working experience in the government back home so I can be much more impactful. However, during my years as a public servant, I have a very good relationship with local leaders as well as the state and federal leaders. A lot of issues that we talk about here require a regional solution. So I have the connection and I'll be able to bring resources to our county. Just most recently, I got $3.75 million to San Jose Milpitas to address the car braking issue. I have also brought about $40 million to address the need for our senior citizens. And now there's some money to have arts, education, and in jails, in the state jails to help the inmates to use the art as a way of the rehab issue. So I'll be able to bring resources to our county, and I have a very open and very easy accessible office. I have this regular community office hour since I was on the council to go to the neighborhood in the evening to meet with people. So thank you very much. I ask for your support.
I think we owe them some applause.
It's a big one, right?
I also want to thank Wesley providing both the sound. We finally got it figured out, and his daughter back, Rachel, who was the wizard behind the curtain. So I'll give these guys a couple minutes to escape. We've got a representative from Councilmember Arenas' office here to give us a quick update if you want to come up. As soon as I can shoot them off the stage, you can have all yourself. Hostile. Thank you, gentlemen. We clearly have to slate, and that's true to consider this time.
Hello, everybody. Is this mic on? So, hello, everybody. My name is Nancy Ley. I'm from the office of Councilmember Sylvia Arenas. She's the council member that represents this area here in District 8. This area here has also been home to my family. I grew up, and I joke with Pastor Goldstein all the time that this is where I grew up and this is my neighborhood and my neighborhood library down the way. So I'm very familiar with this neighborhood and I'm so excited to be working and be here on behalf of Councilmember Arenas today. I just wanted to give some quick updates from her office. We know that our community in Evergreen and Eastside, a part of District 8, has been largely impacted by the public safety power shutoffs most recently. And as a result of that, Councilmember Arenas has made a successful motion to move forward a memo from the mayor and her colleagues on the rules committee to ask for bold decisions to make sure that in the event of public safety shutoffs, as PG&E has announced that they will continue to happen, that our communities that are most vulnerable are protected, and that the city is doing everything they can to explore all options to make sure that we're never in a very vulnerable state. We're very proud of how the city and our Office of Emergency Management have responded to this. In addition to their team, PG&E, everybody, we didn't leave communication up to their team. Our Office of Emergency Management, as well as our District 8 team, has partnered with community leaders, including Pastor Goldstein, our neighborhood associations, to make sure that our most vulnerable populations had the correct information about when power was going to get shut off, when which of our community centers were going to be available as charging stations and as resource centers, and how we can be a resource and make sure that medical baseline residents and seniors that are most vulnerable were taken care of. So we knock on their doors and make sure that people were okay. So we're continuing to work on that. The councilmember remains committed to that, and we'll continue to push those things forward. Public safety is very important to the council member. In addition to that, since she's joined on as council member, one of the issues that she's been most passionate about working is making sure that women and children who are most vulnerable in our community are also at the forefront. So she's been pushing for very strong policy around sexual assault and addressing the rise in sexual assault in the city of San Jose. It's been very alarming, and it's something that is very close to her heart to make sure that we're making ways to do process improvements, make sure our San Jose Police Department has trauma-informed strategies when working with very traumatized victims and survivors of sexual assault, looking at the intersectionalities between sexual assault, human trafficking, and domestic violence. So we are really excited that she's asked for a special meeting from the city council to actually delve into why we're seeing this rise in sexual assault in the city of San Jose. That meeting will be happening next week on Tuesday, November 12th at 9 a.m. And all the information for that memo and agenda just got released today, which she would love to invite everyone to be a part of that conversation so that we can make sure that our community, everyone, even the most vulnerable, are protected and are safe. So, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, this is Evergreen School District, or is an independent person?
No, school district first.
School district update, please.
So I just got a memo from the superintendent that they are going to open up the committee to look into the school closures. Now, as most of you might know already, that I was not in favor of the school closures, but the school board did vote 4-1, and so they're going to go forward to study that whole aspect of how we're going to consolidate schools. And so they're going to put together a committee and are asking for public participation to sit on the committee. And that's one thing that I did insist on with that vote, was to make sure that it was done correctly the way it was done about 10 years ago when I was on the consolidation committee then. That is to get full input from all the stakeholders from all the communities and not just automatically dictate the schools and those. So I really would impress upon you the importance of this committee. If you are in a position to be able to volunteer some time and to sit on these committees, it would be very important that we get that input from the community, and not let the administration just by themselves make these decisions. So please participate in those, and they want to start the meetings as early as the 20th. There'll be 2 meetings a month until I think there'll be one in February, one in March, and then a report out in April. By that time, I hope you have a full plan.
Can I add something now?
So,
So on the ESB.org website, the elementary school district.org website, it talks more about this task force that they're trying to set up and summer for the school district, or 70 months today. They're looking for representatives from specific groups like they do on bond oversight committees and stuff like that. So somebody from senior citizen groups, other stakeholders in our community. So I encourage you to check that out if you're interested in. From what they said, the meetings are set, they're 4 to 6 o'clock, they have the dates already set up. They don't expect a whole lot of other additional work outside of those hours, is what they're saying at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Marshall, or just
No, go ahead.
And just real quick, I just want to invite everybody, I'm sure everybody knows by now, that I am also running for the District 8 City Council seat, and I'm inviting everybody to kick off at the Curry Pizza a week from Monday, so the 18th at 6:30. So you're all up.
Okay. Any other comments from the audience, anything you want to let the community know? All right, I need to mention our January meeting will not be the first Thursday, it will be the second Thursday because of the holidays. I think for the first Thursday, it's on the second or something like that. So we'll move it out a week. We'll be talking about the changes to the voting process in the county, and we're going to have a representative, the consultant for the temple proposed Ruby Norval come in to make a presentation of their side of the thing. We had the neighborhood last week, I think. We also will be planning a candidate forum for the city council race, and that will be a special meeting that we'll have sometime probably in the third week of January. So look for that, John.
The December potluck that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
What was the time and date for that? Where?
Oh man, it's the first Thursday in December. I think that's December 3rd, but don't quote me on that. It starts at 7 o'clock, and it is at the Village Square Library where we typically hold our meetings.
And in addition to the potluck, are we doing the history?
Yes, we're planning on having a history speaker, and we have our steering committee elections at that meeting. So it's always a good time. The history talks are quite entertaining. The dues, you have to be a dues paying member to vote in the election. So if you haven't paid for this year, our treasurer is right there in the red cap. You can give him $20 to be a member. You gotta be a member 30 days in advance, for 30 days in order to be able to vote. So if you're not, pay him tonight and you'll be good. And then at the December meeting, if you could be prepared to pay your dues for next year, that would be appreciated too, because they increased the cost of the community room again, so it's now $40 a meeting. It started at $35 a couple of years ago. It was $37 last year, it's $40 this year. So it takes us a little bit of our money to have that facility. All right, any other comments? Then we are done. Peace out.
Peace out.
Mike.